The morning started like any other on Jake Morrison's small ranch on the edge of the Arizona Territory. The year was 1887, and the frontier was still a dangerous place where old grudges ran deep and violence could erupt without warning. Jake had just finished his morning coffee when he heard the sound that made his blood run cold. It was the distant thunder of hoofbeats, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, growing closer with each passing second. He stepped out onto his porch, his hand instinctively moving to the Winchester rifle he kept by the door. What he saw made him freeze in place. Coming over the ridge like a wave were Apache warriors, more than he had ever seen in one place. They were mounted on horses, armed with rifles, bows, and lances, and they were heading straight for his property. The dust cloud they kicked up was so massive it looked like a storm rolling across the valley. Jake's mind raced. He thought about Nazcha, the Apache woman he had saved from Fort Apache over a year ago, who now lived with him as his wife in all but official name. She was inside the cabin, and he needed to protect her. But against this many warriors, what could one man do? He calculated his chances of survival and found them wanting. This was it, he thought. This was how it would end. But then something strange happened. The massive patrol didn't charge. They didn't whoop war cries or raise their weapons. Instead, they formed a massive circle around his small cabin, surrounding it completely but maintaining a respectful distance. Jake counted at least 300 warriors, maybe more. It was the largest Apache gathering he had ever witnessed, and they had his tiny homestead completely surrounded. Nazcha emerged from the cabin, and when she saw the warriors, her hand flew to her mouth. She spoke rapidly in Apache, words Jake couldn't fully understand, but he caught the tone of shock and disbelief. She grabbed his arm, her eyes wide. "Jake, do you know who leads them?" she asked in English, her voice trembling. Before he could answer, a group of riders separated from the main force and approached slowly. At their head was a warrior Jake recognized from descriptions he had heard, a man whose reputation preceded him throughout the territory. This was Nate, the son of the great Cochise, one of the most respected Apache leaders still resisting American control. Beside him rode several other prominent warriors, their faces painted for war, their bearing proud and dangerous. Jake stepped forward, his rifle still in hand but pointed at the ground. Nazcha moved to his side, and he could feel her shaking. The Apache riders stopped about 20 feet from the porch. The silence was profound, broken only by the snorting of horses and the creak of leather saddles. Every eye was on Jake Morrison, the white cowboy who had dared to take an Apache woman into his home. Nate spoke first, his voice carrying clearly across the distance. He spoke in Apache, and Nazcha translated, her voice gaining strength as she realized what was happening. "He says they have come because they heard about what you did. They heard about the white cowboy who saved one of their daughters from death at the fort. They heard you paid money and made promises to secure her freedom. They heard you treated her with honor and respect when her own people could not protect her." Jake remained silent, unsure where this was going. His grip on the rifle remained steady, but he made no threatening moves. Nate continued speaking, and Nazca's translation grew more emotional. "He says that 3 months ago, you did another thing. You found 2 Apache girls hiding in the rocks near the creek on your land. They were starving and afraid, running from soldiers who had killed their family. Instead of turning them in for the bounty, you fed them, gave them supplies, and showed them the safe path through the mountains to where their people were hiding in Mexico." Jake remembered that day clearly. He had been checking his cattle when he found the girls. Neither could have been more than 12 or 13 years old, huddled in a cave, near death from exposure and starvation. They had been terrified of him, but Nazcha had helped him communicate. They had spent 2 days at the ranch, eating and recovering. Before Jake had personally guided them to the mountain passes, he knew the Apache used to move between territories. He had given them a horse, food, and blankets. He had never told anyone, not even Nazcha, why he did it. He just knew it was right. Nate gestured broadly at the assembled warriors. "Through Nazcha," he said, "those girls were my daughters. They made it safely to our camp in the Sierra Madre. They told us about the white cowboy with the Apache wife who saved their lives when he could have collected gold for their capture. They told us about the woman who sang to them in our language and made them feel safe for the first time since their mother was killed." Jake felt the weight of hundreds of eyes upon him. The tension was palpable, and he still wasn't sure if he was about to die or if something else was happening here. Nate dismounted and walked forward slowly, his hand extended not in threat but in greeting. Jake carefully set down his rifle and stepped off the porch to meet him. The Apache leader gripped Jake's forearm in the traditional warrior's greeting, his eyes searching Jake's face. When he spoke again, his words were measured and profound. Nazca translated with tears streaming down her face. He says that you have shown more honor than most men, white or Apache. You saved not one but 3 Apache women when you could have gained wealth or favor with the army by betraying them. You treated them as human beings deserving of dignity and life. For this, the Apache owe you a debt that cannot be easily repaid. Nate released Jake's arm and gestured to the assembled warriors. We have come to make you understand something. This land, he swept his hand across the valley, is still dangerous. There are those among my people who do not distinguish between white men who have honor and those who do not. There are soldiers who would harm your wife simply because she is Apache. There are settlers who would burn your home because you dare to live in peace with one of us. He paused, and his next words carried the weight of a sacred promise. From this day forward, you and yours are under the protection of the Apache people. Any who harm you will answer to us. Any who threaten this home will face the consequences. We cannot stop the armies or change the hatred that poisons this land, but we can do this. Your home is now sacred ground. It will not be touched while the Apache draw breath. Jake struggled to find words. He had expected death or battle, not this. Not honor and protection from the very people he had once fought against. Finally, he spoke, and Nazca translated his words. I don't want payment or protection for doing what was right. Those girls deserve to live. Nazca deserved to live. Every person deserves that basic dignity. I'm just a cowboy trying to live in peace. If the Apache can respect that, then I will respect the Apache in return. Nate smiled for the first time, a fierce expression of approval. You are more than just a cowboy, Jake Morrison. You are a man of honor in a time when honor is rare. The Apache do not forget debts. We do not forget friends. What happened next was something Jake would never forget. One by one, the warriors began to dismount. They brought gifts, things they could ill afford to give but offered anyway. There were blankets woven with traditional Apache patterns, pouches of dried meat, beautifully crafted arrows, and even a magnificent bow made from mulberry wood and sinew. Several women who had been riding with the war party came forward with baskets of medicinal herbs and showed Nazca how to use them. Children ran between the adults, their laughter a strange counterpoint to the serious ceremony taking place. An elder warrior, his face weathered by decades under the desert sun, approached Jake with something wrapped in soft deerskin. When he unwrapped it, Jake saw it was a knife with a handle carved from elk antler, decorated with turquoise and silver. Through Nazca, the old warrior explained, this belonged to my father, and his father before him. It has tasted the blood of enemies and the meat of many hunts. I give it to you so that you may defend what is yours and provide for your family. May it serve you as well as it served my ancestors. Jake accepted the knife with both hands, bowing his head in respect. I will treasure this and the honor you do me by giving it. The gathering lasted for hours. Despite the military nature of their arrival, it transformed into something else entirely. A celebration of an unlikely alliance, a recognition of humanity transcending the boundaries of race and culture. Apache warriors who had fought against the U.S. Army sat on Jake's porch and shared tobacco with the cowboy who had once served as a scout for that same army. They spoke through Nazca, trading stories of battles and hardships, finding common ground in their shared experiences of loss and survival. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Nate prepared to leave. He clasped Jake's shoulder one final time. The world is changing, my friend. Our way of life is ending. Soon, all my people will be forced onto reservations, our freedom taken, our children taught to forget their language and customs. But let this day be remembered. Let it be known that once, an Apache war party of 300 warriors rode out not to make war, but to honor peace. Let it be known that a white man saw Apache women as worth saving, and that the Apache repaid that kindness with loyalty. Jake nodded solemnly. I'll remember. And I'll keep doing what's right, regardless of what color a person's skin is or what language they speak. As the massive Apache patrol rode away into the gathering darkness, Jake and Nazca stood on their porch watching until the last warrior disappeared over the ridge. The dust settled slowly, and the evening sounds of the desert returned, crickets chirping, a distant coyote howling, the soft rustle of wine through the grass. Nazca leaned against Jake, exhausted emotionally. Do you understand what just happened? She asked softly. They came to tell the entire territory that you are under their protection. Word will spread. Other Apache bands will hear. Even some of the settlers will hear and think twice before causing trouble. You have been adopted, in a way, into the tribe. You are family now. Jake wrapped his arm around her shoulders, still processing everything. I just fed some hungry girls and kept them safe for a few days. I didn't do it for reward or recognition. I know, Nazca replied. That is exactly why they came. You did it because it was right, not because you expected anything in return. That kind of honor is rare. In Apache culture, such actions create bonds that last forever. Those girls were Nature's daughters. You saved the bloodline of Cochise himself. That is not something the Apache will ever forget. In the days and weeks that followed, Jake discovered that Nature's promise was more than just words. Apache scouts would occasionally appear on his property, checking on them, making sure all was well. When a group of hostile settlers rode toward the ranch with intentions of running the Apache woman out of the territory, they found themselves confronted by Apache warriors who seemed to materialize from the landscape itself. The settlers retreated without violence, but the message was clear. Jake's ranch became known throughout the region as neutral ground, a place where neither army nor Apache would cause trouble. It was a strange sanctuary in a land torn by conflict. Travelers would sometimes stop there, knowing it was safe. Apache families making the dangerous journey to the reservations would camp nearby, and Jake would ensure they had water and what supplies he could spare. The knife the elder warrior had given him hung above the fireplace, a constant reminder of the day hundreds of Apache warriors surrounded his home not to destroy it, but to protect it. It reminded him that even in the darkest times, even when hatred seemed to rule the day, individual acts of kindness and courage could bridge the widest divides. Years later, when the Apache Wars officially ended and the last free Apache bands were forced onto reservations, Jake and Nazca remained on their ranch. They had children who grew up learning both English and Apache, who were taught to respect all people regardless of their background. And sometimes, late at night, Jake would tell his children about the day a massive Apache war party surrounded their home, and how their simple acts of human decency had earned them a protection and friendship that transcended all the hatred and violence of their troubled times.